In the previous episode, our boy returned home and got his family safely escorted to the military district. But just as things seemed settling down a bit, a mysterious group called the Dark Demon Society decided it was a good idea to work with Lian Su in an attempt to assassinate him. But again, our boy is always one step ahead. His plan was simple: draw them all out and get rid of them one by one. Meanwhile, he even prepped a level 8 beast fluid to help him unlock another immortal cell. As we continue the story, Lu Sheng slowly opens his eyes. Nearby, a young female officer stands, trying to keep her cool but obviously tense. He shoots her a casual smile, telling her there's no need to be so nervous, and they have plenty of time. She softly nodded, but remembered the orders from her superiors. Apparently, this young man is very powerful and a top general, and she's supposed to follow his lead, with no questions asked. But what exactly is her mission here? Looking around, it's just her, Lu Sheng, a few soldiers, and some train staff. The whole train was quiet, and Lu Sheng seemed pretty relaxed too, sipping tea and messing with his phone. Seeing all this suddenly makes her loosen up a bit, thinking maybe her superior was overreacting. Just as she glances out the window, she senses danger, an intense and powerful aura coming straight at them. She whips around, telling Lu Sheng to evacuate, but he's already gone from his seat. Next thing she knew, he was outside the train, and she watched in disbelief as he slowly threw a punch. Meanwhile, Lu Sheng let out a chuckle, saying how the person arrived later than he expected. With a single hit, everything shattered to pieces. The girl stares in disbelief, feeling like she just witnessed a scene from a sci-fi movie. Before she can fully process it, Lu Sheng tells her to wait right there. He's got some business to handle, but he will be right back. The girl throws open the window, wanting to remind Lu Sheng that they're on a moving high-speed train. The wind whips her hair into a frenzy, but she's too stunned to care because, wait, did Lu Sheng just fly? Meanwhile, not far away, Lu Sheng stood mid-air, facing a guy casually perched on a power pole a bit further down the tracks. Lu Sheng can sense this guy's aura and finds it quite interesting. The man notices him too, clearly impressed by Lu Sheng's ability to fly and his powerful psychic energy. With a smirk, he even gives a little gentlemanly bow, all the while being asked if he's just alone. The guy grins, flashing his face while wearing a few piercings, looking quite excited. Instead of answering, he taunts, saying what Lu Sheng saw back there was just a taste of his power. Honestly, he thought one hit would be enough. But Lu Sheng surprised him. His body then started trembling, perhaps due to the adrenaline, as if just seeing Lu Sheng brought him a strange kind of thrill. This guy, introducing himself as the 9th demon of the Dark Demon Society and his name is Bayman, recalls with a twisted smile saying how he's dealt with military types like Lu Sheng before. Young, brave, and all a bit delicate, just like fresh blades of grass, so easy to snap. Meanwhile, Lu Sheng glances at his watch, noting it's been a whole minute and 20 seconds, and tells the man that his farewell speech is dragging too long. Bayman clearly wasn't expecting that response. He reaches into his pocket, mumbling something about how he won't give Lu Sheng time for any last words when the time comes. But before he even finishes, Lu Sheng's already in front of him, hand chopping down like a blade. Bayman's body splits right down the middle, falling apart in an instant. Lu Sheng casually shakes the blood off his hand. Oof, with 7 immortal cells, 4th realm sword technique, and plenty of martial wills. If he still needed several rounds to beat guys like this, then he wouldn't be the protagonist after all. But as for what Beeman said, it kinda went in one ear, out the other. But did he say he's the 9th demon or something? Lu Sheng tunes into his surroundings with psychic energy, checking if any other Dark Demon Society buddies are lurking nearby. Sure enough, there are a few around the city, but they're still a bit far off. Instead of going after them, Lu Sheng decides to wait for them to come to him. After all, with his power climbing to a point beyond ordinary martial arts, almost turning martial arts into fantasy, there's no rush. He catches up to the high-speed train with ease. As he steps inside, the girl sighs in relief. She has tears in her eyes, clearly worried about him. She'd really thought this whole escort mission was doomed. Lu Sheng then settles back into his seat, thinking to himself that from White Lake City to the capital, this route stretches over 8,000 kilometers, which means he has already given Lian Su plenty of opportunities. The girl, meanwhile, can't believe what she just witnessed. Somehow, this guy caught up with a train going over 200 kilometers per hour. Not only that, but she's almost positive she saw him fly. Just then, Lu Sheng calls her name, snapping her out of her thoughts. She quickly straightens up, ready for his instructions. He then stands up, pats her shoulder, and tells her he's got a quick errand to run, but will be right back. He asks her to send a location to the military command, asking them to swing by. She nods, and a bit curious, asks, "What's the next order?" Hearing this, he thought for a moment and came to the conclusion that there were no next orders. He then tells her to just take it easy. If he needs anything, he will let her know. She blinks in surprise, thinking, "That's it?" His tone is so casual, almost like her dad's back in the day, telling her to wait here, and how he would be right back, while he went to grab something at the store. I wonder if he actually came back. Anyways, the scene shifts to somewhere else, and the man notices Bayman's life signal suddenly vanished. The woman behind him stands up, clearly in disbelief, realizing this situation just got out of hand. She rushes out to report to her superior while telling the man to keep monitoring. In her panic, she dials a number, urgently reporting Bayman's death. She admits they have no idea what happened, but their target is clearly more dangerous than expected and warns the person on the other end to be cautious. There's a soft chuckle on the line, telling her to not compare them to Bayman. The voice on the other end reminds her that Bayman had caused quite a stir here a few years back. He was probably already being monitored the moment he stepped into the country. Strutting around like that, getting ambushed was just a matter of time. The person then calmly promises that before the sun rises tomorrow, they will come back with the target's head. The call ended, but the woman was unable to shake her nerves. She looks down at Lu Sheng's wanted list, feeling a strange chill down her spine just seeing his photo. He's just supposed to be a 20-year-old martial arts prodigy, but is that really all he is? She thought to herself that they were supposed to be the ones hunting him down, but why did it feel like they were being hunted instead? Meanwhile, over in the nearby military district, an officer sitting at his computer suddenly jumps up, catching everyone's attention in the command center. They've just received an SSS-level mission, and it's big. Orders roll out. 2 special force teams are to head to a specific location ASAP, with the heavy-duty battalions 5, 7, and 8 on standby. As the orders flash across the screen, one officer turns to another and asks, "What's the mission that calls for this kind of firepower?" The other officer replies, "It's a terrorist group from Lion Nation, calls themselves the Dark Demon Society." The first officer's face grows serious, saying, "If it's really them, this mission could get ugly." Noticing the look of concern, the other officer asks why he looks so grim. The officer then explained that during his time as part of the counterterrorism team 3 years ago, when the Dark Demon Society attacked the Southern Military District. Back then, they deployed 500 elite martial artists, dozens of grandmasters, and even 5 8th-level great grandmasters. But despite all that power, Beeman managed to escape while causing the military heavy casualties. He believed these people were like monsters, not humans. Either way, they quickly got ready and headed out. Before long, they arrived at the location, and at first glance, it looked like 2 bodies were lying there. But a closer look revealed it was just one body, but brutally split in half as if someone had sliced it down the middle with terrifying force. The officers approached, immediately recognizing the corpse as that of a great grandmaster. To be more precisely, he was certain this was a top tier too. To see someone this powerful die like this was terrifying for them. They believed if word ever got out, it'd be a national shockwave. Judging by his appearance, though, he wasn't from their country. Odds were high that he was with the Dark Demon Society. Examining the body further, one officer couldn't help but note how the man's expression showed no signs of pain or fear. It seemed he'd been killed so swiftly, he hadn't even realized it. Trying to picture the scene, both men quickly realized there was no chance for them to even conjure up the sheer power it would have taken to achieve this. Then one of the officers spotted there was a mark on the body's back. The other officer instantly recognized the tattoo and said this was Bayman. But one of them brought up a question. Who is the powerful person behind all this? If he was able to take down Beeman, then why were they called over here? The 2 officers stood in silence for a while. The only conclusion was that they'd been called here to help with the cleanup. Meanwhile, over at headquarters, General He received the report. He let out a couple of hearty laughs, finally musing that if Lu Sheng ever wanted to kill him, it'd probably just take a single strike. But there was a hint of pride in his eyes. For once, their military was about to produce a truly top-tier martial artist. Elsewhere, Lu Sheng stood on the tracks, testing his new ability, the will projection. It was even more powerful than he'd imagined. If he tried to use it to mimic someone else's will, it'd be practically useless, but simulating his own will? Now that's more interesting. Using his immense psychic strength, he could create a projection of his own will, basically a copy of him that could move through obstacles and snap back to him instantly. Though the downside is that his real body would have to remain stationary. However, this was more than a skill. It was practically a martial miracle. And what could he do with this will projection? Almost anything. Fly, go underground, pass through walls, sneak into. Hold up. What he meant to say was this ability can be used for assassination too. With his projection, eliminating Lian Su would be discreet and swift. No one would ever know it was him. But honestly, even if they did, it wouldn't matter. Lian Su had obviously crossed the line with all the things she had done, not to mention her dealings with the Dark Demon Society. And even as the Martial Saint's wife, there were limits to what she could get away with. Lu Sheng's status had risen far beyond what it once was. Even the Martial Saint himself would have to weigh the risks before clashing with Lu Sheng and the forces supporting him if he deemed Lian Su more trouble than she was worth. In recent days, Lu Sheng had repeatedly reviewed Lian Su's personal info in the dream realm, and the conclusion is pretty much the same, which is her death wouldn't make much of a ripple. In fact, it was clear that all the things she'd done had likely already soured the Martial Saint's patience with her. Killing someone was easy. It was the tangled web of identities that made things complicated. But Lu Sheng had already made up his mind. Just then, the people he'd been waiting for finally appeared. He activated his psychic powers, and two figures materialized at the other end of the tunnel. Perfect. Time to test the strength of his will projection. On the other side of the tunnel, a man checked his watch, muttering that their target's train should be passing by any moment. The woman beside him looked impatient, urging him to hurry up and get it over with so they could go home. No sooner had she said this than the man sensed something looming behind them. He jumped back, startled, as strange energy radiated from both of them, triggering a transformation that transformed them into beasts. They looked up, only to see a golden figure floating in the air. The man wondered if it could be a Martial Saint's avatar, but the woman shook her head. This wasn't a Martial Saint. Those avatars didn't look this small, and besides, she knew this place only had 3 Martial Saints, none of whom looked like this. So who, or what, was this golden figure? Lu Sheng's will projection raised a hand and slowly pressed it downward. Instantly, an immense force slammed down on the two, forcing them to their knees. The man shouted angrily, demanding to know what kind of trick this was, and who is he? Lu Sheng's voice, deep and commanding, replied, "How dare they show such disrespect? In his presence they shall only kneel on the ground." A surge of even greater pressure struck them, smashing their heads to the ground. But Lu Sheng was done playing around. Time to finish off them quickly. Realizing they were in deep trouble, the two tried to dodge as his killing intent washed over them like a wave, barely managing to escape the blow by using all their strength. The golden glow around Lu Sheng intensified, calling them petty creatures and questioning them how dare they act so bold. Meanwhile saying he will call down an immortal now to smite them where they stand. All right, whatever Lu Sheng is having, let me have some of that too. Jokes aside, let's stay on track here. The two exchanged glances, baffled by what they were witnessing. Was this some kind of Halloween prank? But then the woman recalled a term she'd once heard, recalled from a folklore she previously read known to protect the land. The man paused, staring back up at the golden figure. Could they actually be dealing with a mythological god from the legends?